There's something the rich never talk about, not because it's hidden behind closed doors or locked in some secret vault, but because once you see it, you can't unsee it. 10 habits. 10 invisible patterns that precede every fortune you've ever heard about. Some will shock you. Some will challenge everything you've been taught about money. But there's one, habit number 1, that's so fundamentally different from everything you've been trained to believe that when you discover what it really is, you'll understand why the wealthiest people on the planet think in a completely different universe than the rest of us. The other 9, they're crucial. They matter immensely. But this one? This is the dividing line. This is the watershed moment between people who accumulate money and people who actually build empires. This is why some people get rich and most never do. You're going to find out. Habit number 10. Most people think about money like this. I earn $50,000, I spend $45,000, I save $5,000. Done. Transaction complete. But wealthy people? They don't think in transactions. They think in systems. They ask completely different questions. How does this $50,000 move through my life? Where does it compound over time? What leverage can I create from this money? How can I deploy this capital so it generates returns while I sleep? The average person sees money as a linear exchange. Work more, earn more, save more, have more. But systems don't work linearly. Systems compound. Systems multiply. Systems create exponential growth from incremental actions. Your brain is wired for immediate results. You save $5,000 and your mind immediately wants to see something happen. You want validation. You want proof that your sacrifice is working. But compound systems? They look completely invisible for years. 5 years go by. 10 years. Nothing seems to change. Then suddenly, without warning, everything accelerates. The curve goes vertical. This is why most people quit before the magic starts. They mistake the invisible phase for failure. They interpret silence for stagnation. But wealthy people understand that the most valuable compound systems require patience. Here's a real example. A wealthy person takes that $50,000 and splits it strategically into 4 different systems. 40%, that's $20,000, gets reinvested into skill development, education, certifications, coaching, things that increase their earning power. 30%, $15,000, goes into assets, real estate, stocks, businesses, things that generate passive returns. 20%, $10,000, flows into cash flow generation, side businesses, affiliate marketing, income streams that don't require their time. 10%, $5,000, goes to lifestyle. They're not depriving themselves. But notice the ratio. The person who saved $5,000 in a bank account making 0.01% interest, 5 years later, they have $5,000, still broke. The person who deployed $50,000 into systems, 5 years later, their skill has increased their income to $75,000. Their assets have grown to $25,000. Their cash flow streams generate $2,000 monthly passive income. That $50,000 just became the foundation for $5 million. This is the difference between being busy and being wealthy. One exhausts you emotionally and physically. The other is inevitable. Systems do the work. You just have to understand how to build them. 9. They master the art of saying no. Wealthy people are obsessed with something most people never learn: opportunity cost. Every single yes is a no to something else. Every hour spent on one thing is an hour not spent on something potentially more valuable. And wealthy people? They're ruthless about it. They understand that unlimited opportunities exist, but their time is genuinely finite. You can't do everything. The person who tries to do everything ends up doing nothing well. Here's the paradox that confuses most people. Wealthy people look like they're doing less. They're not at every networking event. They're not taking every consulting offer. They're not building 5 side hustles simultaneously. They're not saying yes to every investment opportunity. But that's exactly why they become wealthy. They're not distracted. They're not scattered. They're protecting their attention like it's made of gold. Because it is. Your attention is your most limited resource. Once it's spent, it's gone forever. Consider this real scenario. A CEO making $500,000 per year gets approached with a consulting opportunity. A company wants her to help them fix an operational problem. They're offering $50,000 for 40 hours of work. That's $250 per hour. Most people would take it immediately. Free money. But she says no. Not because $50,000 doesn't matter. She's not that disconnected from money. But because she does the math in a different way. She thinks, those 40 hours, what would they be worth deployed toward my company's growth instead? If I focus on my business, I could increase revenue by $250,000. I could launch a new product line. I could fix the one thing that's been holding us back from scaling to the next level. So $50,000 opportunity costs her $250,000 in company value she's not creating. Her brain does this math automatically. It's not conscious deliberation, it's automated thinking. That's how wealthy people are wired. This is what separates the wealthy from the overworked rich. Both groups work hard, but one works hard on the right things. The other works hard on everything. They're not busier than wealthy people. They're just significantly less strategic about where they spend their time. 8. They reframe debt as a tool, not a burden. Here's something that keeps most people poor for their entire lives. Fear of debt. They see debt and they panic. They feel shame. They think wealthy people don't have debt. They think debt is failure. Wealthy people see debt very differently. They see debt and they do mathematics. If I borrow money at 4% interest, and I can deploy that capital to make 12% returns, then the difference, that 8%, is my profit. They think of debt as leverage, as a tool, as a mechanism for multiplication. Your instinct, your biological evolutionary instinct, is to avoid owing money. It feels wrong, it feels dangerous. You owe someone something, you're vulnerable, but wealthy people have overcome that instinct through understanding. They know that leverage is how empires are built. Every major corporation uses debt. Every real estate empire uses debt. Every hedge fund uses debt. It's not about borrowing more money recklessly. It's about borrowing smart, borrowing strategically, borrowing for assets that generate returns greater than the interest rate. Real example. A real estate investor identifies a property in an up-and-coming neighborhood. The asking price is $500,000. She doesn't have $500,000 in cash. So she puts down 20%. That's $100,000 of her own money. She finances the remaining $400,000 at 5% interest. That's $20,000 per year in interest payments. But this property? It cash flows $2,000 per month in rental income. That's $24,000 per year in cash flow. Plus, the neighborhood is gentrifying. Property values are increasing. By the end of year one, the property has appreciated $30,000. So her returns, $24,000 in cash flow plus $30,000 in appreciation equals $54,000 total return on her $100,000 investment. That's 54% ROI. She's 5x leveraging her capital. Meanwhile, someone waiting to pay cash to avoid any debt is still saving money. They're still far away from their first real estate investment. 10 years later, the debt-using investor owns multiple properties worth millions. The debt-fearing person is still in the accumulation phase. This is how wealth builds exponentially, not by fearing debt, but by understanding that money is just a tool, and tools multiply your results. Debt amplifies results. Good decisions amplified become great outcomes. Bad decisions amplified become catastrophes. Wealthy people use debt when they have good decisions. They avoid it when they don't. 7. They invest in things that give them leverage. Most people exchange time for money. It's the most basic economic equation. Work for 8 hours, get paid for 8 hours. Work for 40 hours a week, get a 40-hour paycheck. The equation is simple. It's also completely linear. It has a ceiling. There's only so many hours in a week. Even if you bill $500 per hour, you're still limited by the hours available. But wealthy people broke that equation. They realized the equation itself was the problem, so they invest in leverage, systems, people, businesses, algorithms, anything that multiplies their output without multiplying their time investment. Consider the lawyer. She bills $300 per hour. She works 2,000 hours per year. That's roughly a 40-hour work week for 50 weeks per year, so her annual income is $600,000. That's her ceiling. She can work harder, but there are only so many hours. She can raise her rates, but clients have limits. She hits a wall. So what does a wealthy lawyer do? She invests $100,000 in building a software platform that does legal document generation. The software automates 70% of what she used to do manually. Now she's not trading hours for money anymore. She's trading leverage. That platform makes money while she sleeps. It makes money when she's on vacation. It makes money when she's sick. The initial investment was $100,000, but the lifetime value could be millions. She took her capped income model and replaced it with a scalable asset model. This is the invisible wall that most people never cross in their entire lives. On one side of the wall, trading time for money, direct exchange, limited by hours. On the other side of the wall, your money and your systems working for you, exponential growth, unlimited potential. The wealthy live on the second side. They invested in getting there. Most people stay on the first side because they never learned that the second side exists. But here's where most people misunderstand leverage when they first learn about it. It's not about working smarter with the same hours. It's about building systems that work completely independent of your direct involvement. That's the real power. 6. They think long-term while everyone else thinks quarterly. The modern world is completely structured around short-term thinking. Your boss wants quarterly results. Your company reports earnings every quarter. Social media rewards daily engagement and viral moments. The news cycle is 24 hours. Your brain wants immediate gratification. Everything around you is optimized for short-term wins. But wealthy people? They're playing an entirely different game. They're thinking in decades, 20-year horizons, 30-year plans, generational wealth. This is precisely why most people feel broke, even when they're earning well. Their financial timeline is too short. They spend what they make because deep down they don't trust that next year will be better than this year. They don't believe in their own future. But wealthy people have a 20-year roadmap. They know exactly where they want to be in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years. They make decisions today based on that future vision. And that psychological shift from quarterly thinking to generational thinking changes everything about their behavior. Warren Buffett bought Apple stock at $150 per share when it seemed expensive. People called him crazy. You're overpaying for a technology stock. Tech stocks are risky. You should wait for a pullback. But Buffett wasn't thinking, will this be $160 next quarter? He was asking a completely different question. In 20 years, how many iPhones will exist in the world? What percentage of global smartphone users will Apple own? Who will own that ecosystem? What will the installed base look like? He was thinking about a completely different time frame. That long-term vision turned billions into tens of billions. While everyone else was obsessing over quarterly earnings reports, he was building generational wealth. Short-term thinking makes you feel productive. You're busy. You're executing. You feel like you're making progress. Long-term thinking makes you actually wealthy. There's a massive difference between feeling productive and actually building something that lasts. 5. They invest in relationships. Most people have a completely incorrect mental image of wealthy people. They imagine them isolated, alone in some penthouse counting money, disconnected from humans, misanthropic. But that image is backwards, completely backwards. Wealthy people are actually obsessed with relationships, not friendships necessarily, but relationships. Strategic, intentional, deeply valuable connections with other people who matter. Your network is your net worth. This isn't a cliche. It's not motivational poster material. It's literally mathematics. Every major opportunity in someone's life, the job that changes their trajectory, the business partner who multiplies their output, the investor who funds their dream, the mentor who teaches them the game, comes from knowing the right person at the right time. Wealthy people understand this at a deep level. So they invest massive amounts of time and capital building these networks. Here's what most people don't see. A venture capitalist spends $50,000 per year on relationship building. She attends high-level conferences. She hosts intimate dinners for founders and other investors. She flies to meet people face-to-face. She donates to causes her network cares about. She takes people out to lunch. Most people look at this and think, that's wasteful. That's not productive. That's just spending money on fancy dinners. But here's what actually happened. In that network, built through those $50,000 annual investments, she found 3 investment opportunities, 3 companies in their early stages. She invested $50,000 in each. 5 years later, each of those companies had a 10x return. So $150,000 invested became $1,500,000. The $50,000 per year she spent on network building, it directly led to $1 million return. And that's just 1 year. That's one cycle. Compounding this over decades, your network becomes your most valuable asset. Your relationships are your most valuable asset. Not your knowledge, not your degrees, not your savings account, your relationships. The wealthy know this, and they act accordingly. They protect their relationships. They invest in their relationships. They expand their relationships strategically. Most people neglect their relationships while chasing money. Wealthy people chase relationships and the money follows. 4. They see failure as data, not catastrophe. Most people fear failure because they see it as the end of the story. They try something, it doesn't work, and in their mind, it's game over. They're finished, failed, defeated. But wealthy people see failure as something completely different. They see failure as the fastest possible way to learn. Every failed business is a PhD in entrepreneurship. Every wrong investment is education money can't buy. Every mistake is a data point that teaches you what doesn't work. Your fear of failure is actually a fear of judgment. You're not really afraid of the failure itself. You're afraid of what other people will think of you. You'll be embarrassed. People will judge you. You'll be labeled as a failure. But wealthy people have internalized a different truth. Everyone who's ever built real, significant wealth has failed. Multiple times. Many times. Steve Jobs was fired from Apple. Oprah was told she was too unpolished for television. Colonel Sanders' chicken recipe was rejected over 1,000 times. The difference between these people and everyone else isn't that they failed less. It's that they failed forward. They learned from each failure and adjusted their approach. Elon Musk's first 3 SpaceX rockets exploded on the launch pad. Complete failures. Millions of dollars wasted. Most people would have quit. They would have seen it as proof that they shouldn't be doing this, that it's impossible, that they're not capable. But Musk saw it differently. He saw data. Okay, the first 3 didn't work. I've learned what doesn't work. The 4th one will work. And it did. Failure wasn't catastrophe for him. It was iteration. It was necessary. It was part of the process. Wealthy people expect failure. They budget for it. They plan for it. They know that some experiments will fail, and they're okay with that because they know the learning is worth the cost. The wealthy don't fail less than average people. They just fail faster, learn quicker, and try again with better information. That's the real difference. 3. They obsess over their number. Most people want to be rich. That's their goal. Be rich. But that's vague. That's meaningless. That's like saying you want to be healthy. Wealthy people, they have a number. Not just make $1 million, but something specific. I want 10 million net worth by age 45 because that generates $300,000 annually from a conservative 3% withdrawal rate, which is exactly my freedom number. That's the income I need to never work another day in my life while maintaining my lifestyle. See the difference? One is a wish, the other is a plan. Your brain cannot work toward a target it can't see. Neuroscience proves this, but the moment you define your number, your actual, specific, crystalline number, everything changes. Suddenly, everything becomes measurable. You can track progress. Tracking creates momentum. Momentum creates motivation. You go from hoping to hit a target someday to deliberately moving toward a specific destination. Here's the real example. A 30-year-old accountant earning $75,000 per year decides to define her number. She works through the math. She determines that $5 million in net worth would generate $150,000 annually which would provide her the security and freedom she desires. She has 20 years until age 50, so she needs to build $5 million in 20 years. That's $250,000 per year in wealth accumulation. Now, every single financial decision gets filtered through that goal. Should she take the job that pays $20,000 more per year? Only if it accelerates reaching her number. Should she buy that $80,000 luxury car? Only if she can afford it without slowing her wealth accumulation to below $250,000 per year. Should she invest in that real estate syndication? Only if the projected returns help her hit her number faster. Her entire financial life becomes organized around this number. Most people, they make random financial decisions. They spend based on mood. They invest based on tips. They save based on what's left over. But this person has a plan. She has clarity. She has direction. When you have your number, the path becomes incredibly clear. Everything else becomes noise. Distractions fade. You know exactly what matters and what doesn't. 2, they read like their life depends on it. Billionaires read, and they read a lot. Bill Gates reads 50 books per year. That's almost 1 per week. Warren Buffett reads 500 pages daily. That's 5 hours of reading per day every single day. Elon Musk reads multiple books simultaneously. But here's what most people don't understand. They're not reading fiction for entertainment. They're not reading to pass the time. They're reading very intentionally to compress decades of other people's experience into months of their own learning. Learning makes your brain feel like it's progressing, but most people consume content mindlessly. They watch YouTube videos, consume podcasts, scroll through social media, and 48 hours later, they've forgotten 90% of what they consumed. The information vanished. But wealthy people read deeply. They read with a pen in hand. They take notes. They underline passages. They apply what they learn immediately. It's not passive consumption. It's active wealth building. Every book is an investment in their knowledge base. A founder reads Thinking, Fast and Slow by Daniel Kahneman. One insight from that book, about cognitive biases and how our brain makes decisions, saves her $2 million. She recognizes a cognitive bias she was about to make in a major investment decision. She stops herself. She avoids the mistake. So the question, was that book worth reading? She spent maybe $20 on it. She invested 10 hours of her time, and it saved her $2 million. That's a $2 million ROI on a $20 investment and 10 hours of time. And that's just one book. One insight from one book. Imagine doing this across dozens of books per year. Imagine the compounding effect of reading 50 books per year for 30 years. That's 1,500 books. If just a few of them contain insights that save you 6 figures or help you make better decisions. The ROI is incalculable. Reading is how you download the wisdom of people who've already built empires. It's how you learn from other people's mistakes without having to make them yourself. It's cheating, basically. It's a cheat code to accelerated learning and faster wealth building. 1, they think of themselves as owners, not employees. This is the invisible line, the watershed moment, the fundamental dividing point between people who accumulate money and people who build wealth. On one side, employees. They work for a paycheck. They do what they're told. They follow the system. They collect their salary on Friday and repeat the cycle. On the other side, owners. They work because they own something. They have skin in the game. They benefit from growth. The mindset is completely different, fundamentally incompatible. An employee thinks, how do I keep this job? How do I avoid getting fired? How do I make my boss happy? How do I stay employed? An owner thinks, how do I make this thing so valuable that it could sell for 10x what I paid for it? How do I build something worth billions? How do I create value that compounds? These are not compatible mindsets. They lead to completely different behaviors, different decisions, different outcomes. This isn't about job title. A C-level executive could have an employee mindset, and a junior developer could have an owner mindset. It's not about your official position. It's about how you relate to your work, how you think about your contribution, what you're optimizing for. Here's the real comparison. 2 people work at the same company. Employee A does their job well. shows up on time, completes their responsibilities, collects their paycheck. It's transactional. Employee B does their job and thinks about the company's revenue. They notice inefficiencies in processes. They identify opportunities for growth. They propose solutions. They track metrics that matter to the business. They think like an owner even though they're technically an employee. 5 years later, employee A is still making $75,000. Nothing changed. They're still trading time for money. Employee B? They got promoted because the company realized their thinking was different. They got an equity stake, or they left to start their own business where that owner mindset could flourish. Same company, same entry point, different mindsets, completely different outcomes. One person built wealth, the other built a job. The wealthy think like owners in everything they do, even when they work for someone else. They're thinking about value creation, they're thinking about ROI, they're thinking about systems and leverage and multiplication. That ownership mindset, that's what separates the wealthy from everyone else. That's the real X factor. That's the habit that cascades into all the other habits. Because once you think like an owner, you naturally start building systems. You naturally start thinking long term. You naturally start investing in leverage. Everything flows from this one fundamental mindset shift. Here's what we learned. The wealthy don't have secret access to better investments than you. They're not smarter genetically. They don't know some hidden financial hack that's unavailable to normal people. But they do think differently. They see wealth as systems, not transactions. They protect their time like it's the most valuable resource on earth. They understand leverage and how to use it. They play long-term games while everyone else is obsessed with quarterly results. They invest in relationships and understand that their network is their net worth. They fail forward and learn from every mistake. They obsess over their specific number and build a plan to reach it. They read voraciously and compress other people's experience into their own learning. And most importantly, they think like owners of their own lives and destinies. Remember at the beginning? There's something the rich never talk about. But now you know it. These 10 habits, these invisible patterns. They show up years before the wealth actually manifests. Sometimes 5 years before, sometimes 10 years before. Most people miss that critical window entirely. They watch this video and think, cool information, but 3 months from now, they'll forget most of it. They'll go back to their old patterns. They'll continue thinking in transactions instead of systems. They'll keep trading time for money. They'll stay busy instead of strategic. But you watch to the end, which means you're the type of person who takes this seriously. So here's what you do. Pick one habit, the one that resonated most strongly with you, the one you think could shift your financial trajectory. And for the next 30 days, build it. Not all 10. 1. Because wealth isn't built overnight through some magical transformation. Wealth is built one habit at a time, one decision at a time, one system at a time. That's the real difference between dreamers and builders. Dreamers want to transform overnight. Builders know that sustainable change compounds over time. If you want more of this, if you want to understand the patterns that actually precede every fortune, the mental frameworks that wealthy people use, hit subscribe. Because we're not teaching you to think bigger. We're teaching you to think like the wealthy think. We're teaching you the actual mindset shifts that create billionaires. And that is how future billionaires are actually built. Not through luck, not through inheritance, through habits.